I want to start with a little story. In a far land, hundreds and hundreds of years ago, there was a king. This was a powerful king. This was a man that wanted to be able to be remembered through history. He wanted to transcend. He wanted to go beyond his generation. He wanted to be remembered as someone special and powerful and smart and as someone with good taste. He wanted to have the image of a powerful man. So he decided that he wanted to build something so special, so extravagant, so beautiful, so big, so amazing that will go through generations and that he will have his name in front of this building. So he went and looked for the best artist out there, the best architect in the world at the time. And it was not just a suggestion, will you be able to help me? Will you bid for this job? It was more like, you have to do this. If you're the best, you have to do this. So he finally tracked the best artist out there in the time. And so he asked him what he wanted. Now, if you know about artists, they like to have a saying in what they do. But the king will not have it. He will have this building his way, with the materials that he wanted, the structure in the way that he wanted. Everything was based on what he wanted, but he couldn't do it. He needed somebody else to do it. So he gets this man and he tells him exactly what he wants: measurements, materials, styles, everything. He tells him exactly what he wants. Now, the artist, the architect, naturally advised him against what he wanted to do. He said, you have to keep in mind the law of physics. You have to respect how design works and how structures need to be created in order for this to be functional, in order for this to last. Well, he didn't care. He had his mind set on what he wanted, and he will have it that way. So as much as he tried to reason with him and say, don't do this, don't do it that way, he was forced to do a building that he was not necessarily excited about doing. You with me so far? So now, he was reluctant to do this, but at the same time, he knew that his life was depending on whether he would do this or not. So he needed to be able to find a way to protect his reputation. After all, if he was to live after this situation, but his reputation will be ruined, then he might not do what he was intended to do or what he wanted to do. So the king asked him to do things that will compromise the integrity of his building, his creation. Yes? So he decides that he's going to build the structure that the king asked him. But he's going to do it based on what he knows will last. He's going to build a solid structure. He's going to respect all of the laws for designing structures, and he's going to do it his way. Okay, now he's taking a risk. He knows that after everything is said and done, his name will be on this building. Even though in the facade will be the name of the king, he knows that he will be known for the person that designed and created this building. So he decides to do the right structure, to create the building in the way that it will be able to last. But since the king was adamant about what he wanted, he needed to modify his design, the structure, and to be able to do what the king wanted to do after he created the structure, what he needed to do. Yes? So he goes on and uses the materials that the king asked him to use, and he uses everything that the king tells him to do and designs what the king wanted him to do after he had designed the core, the main structure. Now, so far, so good. He finishes. The king is pleased, is excited about his creation. He thinks it's the most beautiful building in the world. And then the rain comes. And then the hot temperatures come. And then the storm starts to come. And every storm that would come will damage the building time after time after time. The building suffer more and more damage in a way that it will no longer look like the building the king had requested. But despite every storm, the building was still standing. It was still standing because his name was on the structure, on the building. He was not going to create something that will be easily taken down by the storm. So, the king is not happy, but there is someone that is smiling. Storm after storm, and his building was still standing. Now the facade was ruined. All of the extra materials that the king had asked him to use were gone, destroyed, but the main building was still there. And the architect, the artist, had a smile in his face. Now, this story right here reminds me of the man in the mirror. I know we've been talking about the men in the mirror. And let me tell you why I say this reminds me of the man in the mirror. Because the man in the mirror has been altered from its original design. The original design was not created to have some of the things that over the years it has accumulated and added on to what it looks like now. The original design was different than what it looks like. When you look at the men in the mirror, you see a lot of things that the original artist did not intend to have. Instead, those things were added after the fact. The man in the mirror has changed. The image is now different. The image that you see has been altered. There has been things added to your design when you look at the man in the mirror. You see, maybe it was not an evil king that attempted against your design or the design that God created you with. But nevertheless, today when you look at the mirror, the man in the mirror is something that has been altered from its original design. There are things that as you go on with life, change your design. You see, this man knew about structures, and he knew exactly how this building had to be built. But the king wanted something crazy and extravagant and wild, regardless of what he thought. And because of that, the functionality of the building changed based on what the king was adding. Same thing is for the man in the mirror. God designed you in a specific way, but because of some things in life, you have adopted things in your life that have altered your design and your functionality. All of a sudden now, you look different than when you were originally designed. Let me tell you some of the things that altered your design. Pain and suffering are known to alter one's design. There was a person that was designed to be kind and loving. But you see, after being abused, mistreated, and abused again, inevitably over time, that heart was changing. And that which was created to be kind and loving became hard. Pain and suffering changed people all the time. You see, pain and suffering has added a design in your life or altered your design. You will be amazed of how far pain and suffering can go into one's life. It impacts how you live. It impacts your functionality. Yes, your functionality, how you do things, it's impacted by pain and suffering in your life. You see, I always try to be tranquil. Is that a word? Or I just made up a word? Tranquil? Yes, peaceful, nice, and kind to people that are rude and mean. But sometimes I can't. And so when someone is rude, I get mad. So now after I get mad, I stay mad. And a little later, I'm still mad. Now finally, there is a point after I've been mad for a little while that I start thinking and I start saying to myself, well, maybe this person is having a bad day. Maybe I shouldn't be mad because this person is being rude and mean. Maybe this person is having a bad day. And then it hit me really. Because sometimes what people do, it just doesn't make sense. There was one time where I accidentally cut someone off in traffic. Like I got in front of this person. By accident. I mean, I wasn't on purpose. I was probably listening to a preaching. I was probably worshiping God. I probably had my eyes closed when I was driving. I don't know what I was doing. But I got in front of this person, and I'm in the light. I thought this person was going to get out of the car and come into my window to ask how I was doing. I really thought this person was going to do it. Well, he didn't do that. But as soon as the light went green, and by the way, it took me one more second than it should have taken me. And he started honking, and I'm telling you, he followed me to the highway, got on the other side to show me the finger. Not this one, the other one. He was upset. He was mad. I'm like, it's 9 a.m. in the morning. What kind of day are you having already that you are allowing something so insignificant to throw you over the edge and be so upset and so mad that you're willing to hit somebody if you have the opportunity? I obviously know that it was not because of what I did. It's something else. It's not that. What is causing this reaction in this person? You know what I think it is? It's pain and suffering. Someone that is in pain at the moment is someone that when you extend a hand to help will bite you in the hand. Someone that is hurting, instead of receiving the help that you want, will lash at you, mad, upset, trying to relieve probably from the pain, find relief from the pain. So, I know that pain and suffering modifies our design. You're designed to help people. You're designed to be a vessel, an instrument of God. But when you are inundated, full of pain and suffering, it's difficult for you to do what you were created to do. You were not designed to carry a load on you that is always bringing you down. You were designed to be a vessel that is light so that you can be a blessing to others. That is always transporting something from God to somebody else. Pain and suffering modifies our functionality. Here's something else that modifies our functionality. And this one, there's a scripture for this that I want to share with you. It's in 1 Corinthians chapter 15, verse 13. Do not be deceived. Don't be deceived. Evil company, not sometimes. Evil company will always corrupt. Spanish version says good principles. In here it says good habits. So when you start hanging out with the wrong people, inevitably, it is just a matter of time before your original design starts to be modified and it changes. All of a sudden, you feel different. You start thinking of yourself differently, and then you see yourself differently, and then you think of you feel differently. Do you have it? Do not be deceived. Evil company corrupts good habits. If you don't have it, you can check it at home. 1 Corinthians 15, verse 13. You should always check everything that the pastor says. Unless it's me speaking. Just kidding. You should always check. I don't care who it is. It doesn't matter if they say this is what the Lord says to you. You should always take everything they say back into the Bible and make sure that it is biblical. So, wrong relationships will lead into you having a design that has been modified. No wonder when you look at the mirror, you're struggling to believe that you are a new creation. Because you're still hanging around with evil company. And evil company, just understand this, by evil company. It doesn't mean someone that hates you. It doesn't mean someone that hates the world, which a lot of times is accompanied to that. But it doesn't mean that. It just means someone that is against what God has spoken over your life. It could even be a Christian. You guys got too quiet. When you hang with the wrong people, you will become a different person. You will think you were created for something different. You will act in a way that it is not you, though you may think it's you. There are different factors. In this case, it was a king that wanted to alter a proper design for a building just because of what he wanted to do. But the reality is that you and I often look like that building. That we had an original design. God created you for a specific purpose. The abilities, the things that are in you, the things that you were born with, God placed them there. The good and the bad, everything He placed there. But then life comes. And because of things that happen around us, our design oftentimes is modified. So, at the end of the hot temperatures, the cold temperatures, the winds, at the end of the storms, the king was upset and mad, while the architect, the artist, was smiling. I can think of somebody else that after the storm was smiling. I can think of somebody else that enjoys the idea of storms and hot temperatures and cold weather. You see, I remember Jesus saying to His disciples in one occasion, "Let us go over to the other side." And He was so calm about it that He went down on the boat and He fell asleep. And then what? A storm arose and came. Now, interesting thing about storms, that storms still today, it doesn't matter how much technology we have today, you cannot predict storms. You can detect them as they are forming, and you can say it'll take so much time to get here, and then guess what? It never gets here. They just cause you to cancel your plans for the picnic, and the storm never comes. Anyways, the storms cannot be predicted. They're only detected as they are formed. Yet Jesus knew the storm was coming, and He intentionally said, "Let us go over to the other side." Yes, it was the same Jesus that said, "In this world, you will experience storms." No, He didn't say storms, right? He said what? Tribulation. Same thing. It's the same thing. In this world, you will experience tribulations. You will experience storms. But don't worry. Don't worry. I have conquered the world. Have peace. Know that victory is in us. So, what is it that I'm trying to take this little story to? I want to tell you about the storms that often not just challenge the men in the mirror, but do exactly the same thing that happened to this building. They stripped you of everything else except the original design. I want to talk to you about the storms that challenge the men in the mirror. If you have looked at the men in the mirror, and it is a challenging situation for you, because obviously something is not right, I want to share something about the storms. Want to go on that journey with me? Matthew 13, verse 24 to 30. Here's the first thing I want to tell you about the storms. Why is it that we experience storms? Matthew 13, verse 24. Have it? You may say amen. Another parable He put forth to them, saying, "The kingdom of heaven is like a man who sowed good seed in his field. But while man slept, his enemy came and sowed tares among the wheat and went his way. But when the grain had sprouted and produced a crop, then the tares also appeared. So the servants of the owner came and said to him, Sir, did you not sow good seed in your field? How then does it have tares? He said to them, An enemy has done this. An enemy has done this. Let me just pause right there and let me tell you the first reason why we deal with storms. I know that Jesus is okay with the storms, and I'm going to tell you why is it that we deal with the storms that come and challenge. And I hope that the man in the mirror is challenged in a way that is stripped down all the way to only the original design is left. No amens, I know. Pastor, if you would have said that you hope that we will get blessed in such a powerful way, that we will always have an abundant life, but Pastor, you're saying the opposite. You're saying that you are okay with us going through a storm that will be so powerful enough that will remove everything around us that apparently is not pleasing to God. Yes, that's exactly what I'm saying. The first reason why we deal with storms is because we live in a broken world. We live in a broken world. There is this thing called collateral damage. I know that sometimes we try to find a reason why something happened to us. And we try to say, well, it's because of this, it's because of that, it's because of that. And we try to reason with us. Like, for instance, how many times have you seen an accident out there where someone died only exclusively because being in the wrong place at the wrong time? And I'm not saying that you were in a nightclub at 3 a.m. in the morning with a bunch of drunk people that had weapons with them. No, that's not what I'm saying. It's you can be in the road and someone that has been driving while intoxicated, that does not sleep all night, is driving, all of a sudden kills you in a stop sign. Right? Why is it that happens? Right? Why that kind of storm? Who is there to blame? We live in a broken world, and there is a war going on between God and the enemy. And this right here produces what all wars produce: collateral damage. Innocent people experience pain and suffering because of somebody else's issue. You can ask children about that. Children have nothing to do. They didn't do anything wrong. But all of a sudden, they have to deal with pain and suffering. That's part of the collateral damage of this broken world in which we live in. So when this happens, and you see the tares, and you want to destroy the tares, you know what this man said? This was not done to you, wheat. Don't feel so special about yourself. This was done against me. The enemy is attacking me. You just happen to be in the middle of this fight. We are in the middle of a ever-going fight. And so there will be suffering. There will be storms that we have to deal with just because we are part of this warfare that is taking place right now. Here's another reason why we experience storms. Now, the first one, it's nothing to do with you. It's not about you. It's not against you. Things will just happen. We live in a broken world. Number two, second reason why we experience storms. This one's found in Judges, chapter 2, verse 2 and 3. Judges 2, verse 2 and 3. Got it. Okay, beat me to it. And you shall make no covenant with the inhabitants of this land. That sounds like evil company. You shall tear down their altars, but you have not obeyed my voice. Why have you done this? Next verse. Therefore, I also say, I will not drive them out before you, but they shall become thorns. Sounds so close to storms. I got confused. They should become storms to your side, to your life. And their gods shall be ensnared to you. So second reason why we experience storms. Number one, has nothing to do with you. We live in a broken world, and we will experience suffering and pain. Listen, God, it is true that God uses every situation for our own good. But God is not always using that on purpose, that He placed it there. He will use it because He's got a purpose for us, right? But sometimes things will just happen. Storm that came, right? Now, the second one does have to do with what we do. And this one comes because of disobedience. When you disobey God, you are setting yourself for a storm. You can say, that one, let me tell you a secret. That kind of storm, you kind of can predict. That's when you kind of can. That properly said. You kind of can predict. So, when you're playing with fire, you probably will get burned. Sometimes later than before or than earlier. But you will get. So this kind of storm comes because of our disobedience. Every time we go against what God has created for us, we will experience storms in our lives. We will suffer. We will engage in situations that will cause pain in our lives. Our actions bring consequences every single time. God has established a system. What you sow, you will reap. Don't think that you sowing hatred, abuse, all those things, and then turn around and 2 months later you will reap love and peace and kindness. It doesn't work that way. Everything that we do has consequences. Some of these consequences sometimes manifest as a slap in the hand, and other times you lose that hand. The consequences are always there. So, 2 reasons why we experience storms. Number 1, because we are in the middle of a war and there is collateral damage. Number 2, because of disobedience. How much better our lives how much better would our lives be if we would just listen to what God has said into our lives? Don't go there. Don't do that. Don't partake of this. There is no secret formula to have a blessed life. It is revealed already. You follow His commandments and you will be blessed everywhere that you go. Everything that you do will be blessed if you pay attention to what He's commanded us. Number 3, third reason why, and this is what I want to focus on today. Third reason why we experience storms. This one's found in Luke chapter 22, verse 31 and verse 32. Listen, this is where I'm trying to get us to see, or where I'm trying to get us to go. Our design has been altered. Everyone in here has experienced alterations in our design because of evil, manifested in one way or another. But then the good thing is that we live in a world where we're often experiencing storms. How can that be a good thing, Pastor? Let's find out. Luke chapter 22, verse 31. And the Lord said, Simon, Simon, indeed, Satan has asked for you, that he may sift you as wheat. You know what sifting is? But I have prayed for you that you won't be sifted. Is that what it says? Simon, Simon, Satan, one version says, has desire for you. He has asked for you to sift you. I like to think of that as if somebody's grabbing you by the throat and doing that to you. I like to think something like that when I hear that word sifting, especially because of the Spanish word that is used for that. The Spanish words that is used for this, it kind of reflects whenever you get into a fight and you get beat down. You took a beating. I mean, it was not even. It was not close. It was very clear who won. All of the blood in your body is from you. And all of the blood in his body is from you too. Right? It was clear who won. That's kind of like what I get in my mind. Okay? But I have prayed for you. Listen, this is Jesus. Knowing that the storm is coming. And this is what I love about this message that I'm trying to share with you. Because Jesus does smile when the storm comes your way. Because in this case, just the same way that when he was in the boat with them, he knew the storm was coming. In this case, he didn't only knew, he allowed it. I love the fact that it says, Satan has asked. It implies he's asked me permission. Satan has asked to have you so he can give you a kind of beating that you will never forget. But I have prayed for you that actually never happens. But I have prayed for you that once the storm is gone, that you still remain, that your main structure and your main design, what you were created for, now it's completely clear and clean of everything else. And then at that point that you can do what you were created to do, Satan has asked for you. There is a storm coming. And God is not keeping you from it. It's keeping you through it. Because he needs the storm. He needs the storm. The storm is the way in which he destroys everything that the enemy has added onto you, placed on you, everything that you have added onto you because of others' opinions. The storm is how God destroys everything that you have accumulated over the 20 years, 30 years of your past that has been crazy and wild. That's the way that God destroys all of that and leaves only the bare bones. That's why storms are not pretty. Because at the end, it looks like all you have is bare bones. Everything else is destroyed. You know what's the first thing that it's gone when the storm comes? The facade. That's the first thing that is gone. Your facade. But I have prayed for you that your faith should not fail. And when you have returned to me, strengthened your brethren. Simon, Simon. I don't know if you see the storm coming. I don't know if you know the storm is coming. I don't know if you're in the middle of the storm or the storm just left. Regardless, I have good news for you. Because what the storm does is it reveals what really is beneath. It reveals what really is beneath. And you may be questioning, I wonder if this is really what is beneath. I do want to say this. Beneath every person in this place, there is something valuable. There is something worth dying for. So much so that he did. He died in the cross. you and for me. For Jesus did not come to the world to condemn the world, but to offer salvation, an opportunity, so that when you see bare bones, you start really to engage in the real value that is in you. There is value, there is a special design. So when the storm comes, the man in the mirror is stripped away. So, expectations, good or bad, traditions, paradigms, your past, what you think is the future, when the storm comes, it leaves you just there, standing. Nothing else. The hopes, the resentments, the regrets, all of that is gone. He has the opportunity, God has the opportunity to really do something in your life. Storm comes, the man in the mirror is stripped away from all that is not his original design. Number one, the facade is removed. Opinions are removed. And all that you have accumulated over years is gone. All there is left is what's gone. You know how it oftentimes takes people to reach rock bottom in order to be able to actually come back and do something? Listen, the storms in life provide you with an opportunity to start there at the bottom. They're not here to destroy you. Storm is not here to destroy you or what God created for you. In this story, as the king added on to the design of the artist, the world might have thought that it was a beautiful building, that it was amazing. It might have had a good functionality for the king. And what everybody would consider a failure, as everything was falling apart except the original design, God, the architect, the artist, was smiling. Because now you're standing. Now you can continue. And now God can build exactly where He left. I don't know what it is that you are going through and how it is that this man in the mirror is keeping you from doing what you were created. Storms that come to life are there to be able to reveal the kind of value that only the designer knows